In this video and the next one, we're going to go through multisig addresses. These are special addresses which need more than one party to sign transactions, spending transactions. We'll take a simple example where there are two parties and both need to sign any spending transaction. So in the first part, we're just going to go through how to set up the multi-signature address. We'll take two different scenarios or two different wallets. Let's start with a Linux wallet where we get ourselves a new address. So this is our address in the Linux wallet. And then we go to a Macintosh wallet. And we've actually gone into the help window, debug window, and selected the console here. So we explicitly get a new address, and we get this one. Now, in order to make sure that we know what we're doing and everything is correct, we're going to also validate these addresses. So here's the validate address command. Copy this, paste it into here just to make sure, and it says yes, it is valid. And not only is it valid, it's also my address. So this wallet owns this address. Do the same in the Linux console. Validate address and this guy. And yes, it is mine. But now if we were to do it the other way around, if we were to take the Linux address and validate this on the Macintosh, yes, it's a valid address, but it's not mine, right? So each party only knows its own stuff. Now, the next step then is to make a note of the public keys. And if you notice, one of the things that came out of this was the public key of the Macintosh address and the public key of the Linux address. So we have both of these public keys. We can also get the private keys. So if we dump the private key of this one, then we get the private key. And this is the key you do not want to show to anybody, because if you show this to anybody, then they can spend any funds that are stored in this address or associated with this address. But if you're doing something which is important, then this is the address that you take and you store somewhere else, because you can import it later. And you can store it on a piece of paper, USB stick, anywhere you like. So we are going to assume that we have dumped these and we have taken backups of them. And now what we want to do is we want to use create multisig. We want to create a multi-signature address. And this is the way it's done. You take each address separately. Now in principle, you can take just the addresses. Okay, so you can take this address, and then you can take the other address, take also the Macintosh address. So let's see, it's over here. Take the Mac address and stick those two in. And now it's not going to work because the Macintosh address has never been used. So the Linux machine doesn't actually know who owns this address. So it's better to use the public keys. So let's stick in the Linux public key and stick in the Mac public key. So we now have done the set up both these keys, and we now get a weird looking address. It doesn't start with a B, it starts with a 3. Now if we try to validate this address, let's see what it says. It will say this is not my address. So it's a valid address but not my address. To make it my address for the Linux wallet, now what you need to do is to add it as a multisig address. So let's add it as a multisig address and add multisig address. So smiley coin CLI, and let's just quickly see exactly how this is done. It takes the 2, and then if I remember correctly, it just takes exactly the same thing as we had before. These two things, and yes. So now we have added this to the wallet. If we now validate it, what happens is it is indeed mine now. It's one of my addresses. It has recognized completely the address. It is recognized as a part of the wallet, but it is a multi-signature address. I cannot spend from it myself. And then we do exactly the same thing in the Macintosh wallet. So here, go to this wallet, paste in the same command. The Macintosh wallet realizes, okay, this is, of course, it gets the same address. So now let's do validate address on this thing in the Mac wallet just to make sure. And boom, yes, it is a valid address. Next, let's just send something to the address. Send to this address, and let's just send 150 smileys to it. And this is our transaction. What we need to do next is figure out how to spend from it. And that's the real feature of the multisig addresses. You can only spend from them if both parties sign it. So we're going to take a look how that is done in the next video.